democratic republics. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Committee, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. One, are you saying that he's wrong in that statement that he made then? And secondly, what would you say to people who believe that you're only releasing these documents now to improve your standing with the president after he said that your intelligence assessments were wrong?
The evidence and the intelligence that has been declassified and released is irrefutable. I'm going to let Caroline speak to Secretary Rubio.
I'll speak to both questions. First, on Secretary Rubio, he put out a statement in 2020 following that Senate Intelligence Committee report, and he said what they found is troubling. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling, which the Director of National Intelligence just confirmed for all of you, that Russia was trying to sow distrust and chaos. But what's the outrage in this, that Secretary Rubio did not say at the time, the Democrats were saying at the time, is the fact that the intelligence community was concocting this narrative that the president colluded with the Russians. The only people who are suggesting that the Director of National Intelligence would release evidence to try to boost her standing with the president are the people in this room who constantly try to sow distrust and chaos amongst the president's cabinet, and it is not working. I will just answer your question directly. I am with the President of the United States every day. He has the utmost confidence in Director Gabbard. He always has. He continues to.
Well, that is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, and let me just say she's absolutely wrong. She is absolutely 100% wrong. It is not only people in that room who are saying that Tulsi Gabbard released the report in order to gain favor with Donald Trump. I'm saying it too. I'm saying it right here, right now. I am saying it. Look, this is a very, very complex situation. If you've been listening to this show for a long time, hell, if you've been listening to WLTH for a long time, going back to when I was on the air with Jonathan Booz, almost 10 years ago now, you know I always said Russiagate was nonsense. It was always nonsense. It was always nonsense. Okay? But does that mean that Donald Trump isn't doing this to distract from the Epstein files? No. Both things can be true at the same time. But what I really found was interesting was how Tulsi Gabbard is essentially referring Barack Obama to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. Now, this is all for show. I want you guys to know that absolutely nothing's going to happen to Barack Obama, for the simple fact that the Supreme Court established last year, thanks to Donald Trump, that whatever the president does is basically legal. So the president can incite a riot and almost, get senators and Congress people killed, and nothing can happen to him because he's the president. So obviously, regardless of Barack Obama's role in the Russiagate fabrication, nothing's going to happen to him. This is solely for show. So much of our political system is for show, and I think it's important to understand that. But again, I've been talking about this story for the last 10 years, for the last decade almost, and I think it is important to understand what our government is capable of doing. It really is. Zero Hedge, which is a website, actually did a pretty decent breakdown of this case, where they talk about essentially that according to these declassified documents, U.S. intelligence leaders concealed high-level doubts about one of Russiagate's foundational allegations that Russia stole and leaked Democratic Party material to help Trump defeat Hillary Clinton. In a September 2016 report that was never made public until now, the NSA and the FBI broke with their intelligence counterparts and expressed low confidence in the attribution to Russia. The previously undisclosed dissent about Russia's alleged hacking activities in the 2016 election is among several revelations released by Tulsi Gabbard. Again, Russiagate was always nonsense, but also Tulsi Gabbard is trying to get back in Donald Trump's good graces after, throwing water on the idea that Iran was building a nuke, which she said wasn't happening. Donald Trump said it was happening, and she ended up in the doghouse. So again, as I always tell you guys, you got to keep two things in your head at once. There are no good guys, no good Democrats, no good Republicans in this story. No honor among thieves. We need to start looking at our political parties in this country the way we look at drug cartels. You don't say the Sinaloa cartel is any better than the Cali Colombian cartel. They're both cartels. And so all these people are criminals. And I think it's important to understand that. But let me get back to the story. The previously undisclosed dissent about Russia's alleged hacking in the 2016 election is among several revelations released last week by the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard. According to Gabbard, President Obama and senior members of his cabinet manufactured and politicized intelligence in its waning months to wage a years-long coup against Donald Trump. I don't think they did it to wage a coup. They definitely did it to weaken him. The establishment were very upset that they got outwitted by let's just be real, borderline retarded game show host, and who is, obviously one of the most odious people living in a lot of ways. And so obviously they wanted to weaken him. They wanted to weaken him, and more importantly, they wanted to conceal, the Clinton campaign wanted to conceal why she had lost an election to one of the, most odious humans living. So let's get back to it. Gabbard's material adds to a body of evidence previously reported by Real Clear investigations that challenges the widely parroted claim about the quality of evidence and the extent of interference of Russia in the 2016 election. These conclusions, based on questionable assertions presented as hard facts, have been falsely portrayed as an intelligence consensus. When Trump, the nation's commander-in-chief, cast doubts on the Russian interference narrative, former CIA chief John Brennan denounced him as nothing short of treasonous, which again, the CIA allegedly has had presidents assassinated. So the head of the CIA calling anybody treasonous is pretty rich. But I digress. Until now, the purported U.S. intelligence consensus on Russian meddling has been conveyed to the public in three seminal reports. The first was a January 2017 intelligence community assessment released in the final days of the Obama administration under the direction of Brennan and then the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. The ICA accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of ordering an influence campaign to denigrate Democratic candidate Clinton and help Trump win the 2016 campaign. Now, some of this effort involved propaganda on Russian media outlets and help messaging on social media. Now, it's important to understand that that happens all the time. That literally happens all the time. The U.S. literally does that all over the world. Barack Obama literally went on French TV to beg the French people to vote for, I believe it was Emmanuel Macron, who's the current president in France. So again, they kept this very murky and very gray area on purpose. At first, it was Russia hacked our election, as if they hacked in the voting machines and changed the votes for Trump. Then it became, well, you know, they put some ads on Facebook, or they said mean things about Hillary Clinton. Like, that, they did that murky on purpose. That was all done on purpose. The larger component hinged on the allegation that the GRU, Russia's main intelligence agency, stole emails and documents from the Democratic Party and released that material principally via two online entities, DC Leaks and Guccifer, I guess, 2.0, as well as whistleblower organization WikiLeaks. Now, Julian Assange, who is the founder of WikiLeaks, has long denied that Russia or any other state actor was his source. Nevertheless, the ICA stated that in 2017, stated that the U.S. intelligence had high confidence that Russia engineered the hack. The Mueller report, issued more than 2 years later, advanced the ICA's claim that even with more confidence and specificity, but these new documents, declassified, show that the ICA, Mueller, and the Senate reports all excluded intelligence from the intelligence community that secretly identified doubts and evidentiary gaps on the core allegation of Russian meddling. In a previously unpublished intelligence community assessment circulated within the government on September 12, 2016. Now, this was 2 months before the 2016 election. The FBI and the NSA expressed low confidence that Russia was behind the hack and the release of Democratic Party emails. So they literally went forward for the entirety of Donald Trump's first term, saying that Russia had hacked the DNC, knowing that they didn't, or more than likely did not. The FBI NSA dissent was especially significant given their central role in investigating Russia's alleged cyber meddling. So after this has all happened, and Barack Obama, who was the president at the time, and I said this when I was here, me and Jonathan, rest in peace, if Barack Obama truly felt that Vladimir Putin had hacked into our election or thrown the election to Trump, we would have been in World War III at that point. He wouldn't have just let that slide. He wouldn't have been able to just let that slide. I'm sorry. But rather than make the September ICA and its dissenting contents public, the Obama administration told a much different story, one that ensured allegations of Russian interference would hobble Donald Trump's presidency before he took office. On October 7th, 2016, the Department of Homeland Security and the Office of the Director of National Intelligence issued a joint statement claiming that U.S. intelligence is confident that Russia hacked the DNC in order to interfere with the U.S. election process. So they released that statement knowing that the report that they had from the month before said that was not true. So again, they lied on purpose. Apart from the Steele dossier, the Christopher Steele dossier that the whole, Trump likes being peed on by Russian hookers. That's where that narrative came from. That we now found out was paid for by Hillary Clinton's campaign, and she had to pay a fine with the Federal Election Committee over. It contained no new evidence that would have reversed these previous assessments. After ordering a replacement ICA, the Obama administration officials moved to silence dissent. According to the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, a senior official who led the September ICA allegations of Russian meddling was sidelined from the new process. This unidentified official, whom Gabbard's office described as the ODNI whistleblower, was shunned after questioning his leadership about why an IC assessment was being created that contradicted multiple IC assessments. The December DNI memo also inadvertently confirmed another evidentiary gap, a reliance on evidence provided by Trump's campaign rival. The attribution of intrusions to Russia, the DNI wrote, was based on the forensic evidence identified by a cyber firm and the IC's review and understanding of cyber activities by the Russian government. The private cyber firm is CrowdStrike. Now, CrowdStrike worked with the Clinton campaign, which triggered Russiagate the previous June by accusing Russia of hacking the DNC servers. So basically, this goes back to, again, this has been a decade, almost a decade long story that I really wish Jonathan was here. You know, rest in peace to him. We lost him last year, because me and him used to talk about this very often while the story was unfolding back in 2016, and we you know, cut holes through this, and he particularly used to cut holes in this narrative, the Russiagate narrative, 10 years ago almost, because again, it was pretty obvious that if Barack Obama truly believed what was being said or being implied, he would have moved a lot differently. A lot differently. Okay? Now, that being said, all this is, you know, has been nonsense. We knew it was nonsense. And if you were not listening to corporate liberal media for the last 10 years, you knew it already as well. But that being said, the timing of the releasing of this is 100% distraction. It's 100% distraction. Because we had some bombshells this week. Jeffrey Epstein's testimony from his 2010 case was released. And if you're listening, he might there might have been a president who was mentioned in it. So let's see.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Woo! So Jeffrey Epstein has asked if him and Donald Trump ever associate with any underage girls. And instead of just saying no, like your average person would do, he pleads the 5th. You know, in any other news cycle, that would be an absolute bombshell that everybody's talking about. But this sort of hellscape that we currently live in, it's like the 5th or 6th. I won't even go that far. It's probably the 10th story that any news would probably have on there now. You have the most prolific pedophile, sex trafficker in modern American history pleading the 5th when he is asked about his relationship with the current president of the United States. And it's just like crickets. And so again, this is why we finally got the truth about Russiagate now. You know, obviously the Republicans are being very cagey about this. You know, they don't like the Republicans, you know, they have a whole lot to say, you know, when Joe Biden's in office and when certain revelations happen. Now they're being pretty cagey about this. This is Anna Paulina Luna and a few other Republicans.
The administration has done more to investigate this and provide transparency, not just but many other things than the previous administration. Look, they have asked for the unsealing. The court denied it, which I would say that the court needs to put that out there. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're done with it. President Trump has told the Attorney General to release all credible information. And to go a step further, they still have done more than Biden did the last 4 years in office. In fact, Democrats were protecting it in the Senate. Why would the Democrats not release the Epstein flight list? I want to know.
I want to see it released. I like transparency on anything. I think I was surprised when the Biden administration didn't really release it, and I'm surprised now that we're still not releasing it. But then again, I don't know what those presidents knew. I don't know what those DOJs know. There might be good reason, but I don't see what it is.
If they become apathetic, if those voters who got energized and put Trump in the White House and us in the majority become apathetic because we don't follow up on this one simple small promise, then they're not going to show up in the midterms. We're going to lose the majority, and the Democrats will be in charge.
So that's a lot of the different Republicans, what they have to say about it. Like I said, and I hope listening to this show, you know, I try to reiterate this every week. There are no good guys out of any of these people. You know, I think the best thing for us to do is let these elites fight it out amongst themselves. Let them fight. You know, that's, you know, again, I have to quote Jonathan. Let them fight. Okay, just let them fight. You know, Russiagate was really, the whole point of Russiagate was about weakening Russia and getting what we have now, which is the war in Ukraine. They wanted an excuse because they wanted to pivot away from the Middle East. People were tired of sending hundreds of billions of dollars to Iraq and Afghanistan and Libya and all these other places. Russia was the prize. And so since 2014, we have been meddling in Ukraine to mess with Russia. And they knew that if they convinced you all that Vladimir Putin had overturned our election and hacked our election, that you would support what's going on in Ukraine now. And a lot of people do. You see a lot of Democrats who would never in a million years support another war, support us sending $200, $300 billion to Ukraine that could have been used here in the city of Gary. They could have been used in Chicago, Detroit, Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan still don't have good water, y'all. But how can they manufacture consent to get you guys to be upset about Ukraine? Oh, I know. You guys all got to hate Vladimir Putin. Right, and why should they hate Vladimir Putin? Oh yeah, because he overturned our election. And so yeah, now we ain't got no choice but to help Ukraine overthrow Russia now and try to grind Russia into some sort of submission so we can break Russia up the way that we broke up Iraq and Afghanistan and all these other countries. It was always about the military-industrial complex. It was always about that. That's what it was always about. And some of the different revelations that ironically they found out in the declassified House Intelligence Committee report, they actually said that Russia had a lot of anti-Hillary Clinton dirt that they did not release. Just to bring this home even close, they found out that Hillary Clinton was on heavy tranquilizers, that she was suffering intensified psycho-emotional problems. Again, this is something else me and Jonathan talked about. The woman collapsed and had a seizure at one of her events. I think it was a 9/11 event right before the election. And people said, "Oh no, she didn't have a medical emergency." Yeah, she did. Yeah, I remember it. She did. And I remember arguing with a lot of y'all about that who called in. She had severe health elements. She has type 2 diabetes, ischemic heart disease. Internal DNC communications found that Barack Obama found Hillary Clinton's health extraordinarily alarming. You know, there were other Democratic admissions that European allies were unenthusiastic about a Clinton presidency and thought she was not up for the job of heads of state. She also had deep vein thrombosis, COPD, and chronic fatigue. You know, seriously, like these things. But again, it's important to talk about this because it's important to talk about what our government is capable of. You know, our government is capable of shaping a reality that is so far from the truth that, you know, you won't even recognize it. You know, this is why Malcolm X said many years ago, he said, the media will have you hating the oppressed and loving the oppressor. This is why. Our government literally created a narrative designed to manufacture consent for another war that we are now stuck in. We are stuck with Ukraine. We are stuck with this. We have sent them hundreds of billions of dollars. I think close to 300 billion. And it was all predicated on a fabrication that was designed to do two things: manufacture consent for this war, and to manufacture to essentially weaken somebody ain't like. That don't mean Donald Trump is good. That don't mean that he's not corrupt. That don't mean he ain't evil. He is. But again, I'm asking you, you got to look at these people like cartels. This is the Cali Colombian cartel versus the Sinaloa cartel. That's all this is. This is the Gambinos versus the Genovese. Do not get invested in these people's wars with each other. They are elites. They don't care about you. Not no Democrats, not no Republicans. They do not care about you. That is why I believe what Dr. Claude Anderson said, and I'll try to, let me see if we can leave on that. I'll try to play that and what he had to say about situations just like this. We'll be right back after this.